For how long?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. The gentleman is recognized.
Excuse me,
I
4
appreciate
minutes.
the gentleman from California yielding. With an allocation that cuts $2.9 billion below the current level and $5 billion below the amount requested by the Obama administration for the next fiscal year, the subcommittee has drafted an agriculture appropriation bill that drastically reduces funding for food programs that serve women, children, and the elderly, and for the Food and Drug Administration, among other drastic cuts. The economy is still staggering, Mr. Chairman. Unemployment is still far too high, and people around the country are still hurting. American families need help just to make ends meet. The bill slashes funding for WIC, the Women and Infant Care and Children Nutrition Assistance Program, and the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, leaving more people to fend for themselves during the worst recession since the Great Depression. While I am pleased that we were able to provide a slight increase for the WIC program in full committee markup with the acceptance of the DeLauro amendment, this bill still drastically underfunds this critical program. This bill reduces funding from $6.73 billion this year 11 to $6.05 billion, a cut of more than $650 million below current levels. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that the drastic reduction will require us to turn away from 200,000 to 350,000 eligible low-income and young children next year. That's a tragedy. Unemployment is still hovering around 9%, and the economic recovery has faltered since the new Republican majority took their reins with their illogical cut-and-grow strategy. Again, this is no time to be pulling the rug out from underneath the people who can least afford it, Mr. Chairman. To cut the budget of the Food and Drug Administration represents another perfect example of Republican majority's commitment to short-sighted budgeting. In the aftermath of several nationwide recalls, Democrats in Congress passed a food safety bill that added new and important capability to the FDA. But this bill actually moves us backward in protecting our food supply and medical products. It is 12% below the current level and 21% below the amount requested by the administration. These cuts will increase the risk of reoccurring outbreaks of foodborne illness. The FDA would inspect fewer firms that manufacture food and conduct fewer inspections of imported food. The bill also takes a short-sighted approach with respect to our international food aid program, cutting Food for Peace by $457 million below current levels, and the McGovern-Dole Food for Education program by $19 million, 10% below 2011. By slashing funding for these critical overseas programs, we risk exacerbating food insecurity and strife in some of the most vulnerable parts of the world and are essentially undermining our own national security interest. Beyond food programs, there are numerous other programs that take egregious cuts. Notably amongst those is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. The CFTC takes a cut of $30 million below current levels. Could I have 30 seconds?
Yes, 30 seconds.
The gentleman's recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
The requested increase for FY 2012 is needed in order to implement the measure forward in the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Bill and provide oversight and regulation of the options and futures markets that wrought such havoc on our economy just a few years ago. One can't help but notice the efforts in this bill to drastically cut food assistance to the poor, which actively undermining any effort of oversight and regulation of the wealthy on Wall Street. So I urge all Democrats to vote no on this bill and yield back my time.
Gentleman's time's expired.